Are veterans intentionally being pitted one group against each other? I'm getting into this in today's episode where I see the Rainbow veterans and other veterans groups being pitted against one another to cause division. And in my opinion, it's to serve the political ends of our political elite here in Canada. I'm curious to know what you think. Let's get into the episode and let's have this conversation. If you want to tune in and be a part of these conversations, I go live every Thursday on YouTube and X. So going to make sure that you're going to want to hit the bell and subscribe for more notifications. All right, let's get right into it. So the next thing I want to bring up is kind of like a big picture, like meta picture, big picture, meta picture. How can you tell it's late in the day and I haven't had a boost me up coffee? Talking about a concept or an idea that's kind of been rattling around in my head for a while as to why things are happening the way they're happening and what is the big play here. I like understanding why. So I like seeing the forest for the trees. So when I can get to the bottom of it, it makes me feel good inside. And I'm starting to put some pieces of the puzzle together as to why, for instance, the veteran community seems to have a target on them. Now, obviously I'm biased because I'm in and you are likely too. So if a story pops up, we'll be likely to read it and then dig into it a little bit more. Whereas the rest of the Canadian population isn't really going to pay attention to these things because for them, this is a minor issue, right? I mean, we have bigger issues and I'll be the first to say it. Like we have really big issues here. We have a housing crisis, or we have a financial crisis, or you have a corruption crisis. Like we have some really big issues here. You know, the cost of everything has gone through the roof. That's not cool. What are we going to do about it? But I think one of the focal points is the way we treat our veterans, because it is a issue that affects the soul of our country. And if you don't address it, it festers. It becomes ugly. We did some ugly stuff for our government. And so therefore there's like that quid pro quo unsigned agreement between veterans and the government. Like, hey, we'll do your dirty work, but make sure we get looked after on the back end. And when we don't get looked after on the back end, you can get a few of us a little bit prickly. And it's literally what motivated me to do what I do now. I'm pissed off. And I'm sure a lot of you are too. But the key is, why are we getting hammered? Why do we have a little bit of or our big target? Maybe it's a little target, maybe it's a big target. So let me see if I can unravel a little bit of this right now. And it starts with the Afghan Memorial. So if you guys aren't aware, there's a memorial that was awarded to a company here in Quebec, I believe, Montreal-based design team, to construct the Afghan War Memorial. And yeah, that makes sense. It's the longest war in Canadian history. We went all in on this war. We committed, blood, sweat, tears, treasure to quote unquote win this war. We lost it, but there needs to be some sort of commemoration in the nation's capital for the sacrifice. Okay, so I think we're all on board with that. I don't think that's too big of a leap. The only issue is it's mired in scandal already. I think it's taking a bit too long to get off the ground, but that's neither here nor there. The contract was already settled and it went out to tender. There was a vote on it. It was, what Canada wanted essentially, but the federal government stepped in and said, nope, not doing that. It's going to another team from Alberta, even though it went through like the democratic channels that it was supposed to, because let's be honest, this is something that Canada should vote on. And I agree with that. But no, the government came in, Trudeau government came in and said, no, we're going to do this instead. And so now we don't know when this is going to be built. So this is a design concept here. This is the one that apparently won. Looks cool. But I mean, this is like, I looked at this before, but it doesn't seem to really reflect what we wore already. And it doesn't even look like our helmets are correct. Again, like leave it up to civvies to make an interpretation. Okay, so that's one part. But interesting enough, if we look at who's involved here, former Supreme Court Justice Louise R. Bohr. Now, you may recognize that name because she was part of the commission that talked about the toxic culture and like the sexual assault and abuse stuff that's going on in the CAF. She was leading that. Now, that's a whole other episode, I think. I don't know enough about it to make too strong of a statement on it, but part of her role, I think, was to undermine a lot about what we were doing here in the CAF. And then there's a knee-jerk reaction. And anyways, but it's interesting that she was part of this commission because she was part of the design team. And then the project got reversed. So I'll just read you here. Former Supreme Court Justice Louise R. Bohr, an advisor to the design team that won, then lost the chance to deliver the $3 million project, told this newspaper on Monday that federal officials chose to cheat the winning team Dow submission by ignoring their own rules in awarding the design contract to Team Stimson submission from Alberta. And her quote is, "I think there should be a lot of concern about the integrity of procurement process by the federal government," said our board. Now, we don't know what goes on behind palace doors, but I find that I find that interesting. Is there a link there between her decision years ago and this? Is there somebody bringing out the palace knives? I don't know. Who knows? But it's interesting that she's involved in both of these. Now, the projected date I read here should be, have completion done by 2027, I believe. So, we're looking at, and if the government says 2027, it's going to be 2032, like, let's be honest. And there's going to be massive cost overruns. And we're going to realize in a report done by Dave Pugliese that it cost $1.2 billion somehow, right? That's Canada for you in a nutshell. But what's interesting is if we look at what the government's priorities are, okay? So let's just compare two things here. We have 158 Canadian soldiers die in the war, the longest war in Canadian history. Almost 40,000 members of the Canadian Armed Forces served in Afghanistan. And we still can't get a war memorial up in the nation's capital. But what we can prioritize is the construction of an LGBTQ2S+. Well, there's more letters there every day. Isn't there supposed to be an I in there? National Monument in Ottawa. Okay. This has already been green-lighted and they're already building it. Now, okay, maybe two different pots of money, but the optics on this is not great. Okay, this is to commemorate the LGBTQ purge. I don't really know what that is, but it's important for their community. So I don't want to discount that. And okay, I'm not saying that monument shouldn't be built. But if there's a national monument, and this is related to the Canadian Armed Forces, let's not forget, because from reading up on the purge, they're talking about the entire federal government. So Canadian Armed Forces included. How is it that you can't get a war memorial done before this, more civilian like social justice memorial done? I'm just curious as to why that would be prioritized over the war memorial. The war memorial seems to have a lot more weight than this. So that poses a lot of questions for me. Why would the government be so inclined to have this memorial over the war memorial? That's curious to me. So I did a little bit more digging. And if we hop over to the rainbowveterans.ca. So the rainbowveterans.ca is an organization that I only learned about a month ago. So this is an advocacy organization, and they're advocating for their community. So good on them for getting organized, and they've got a lot of political sway. Okay, so I didn't know about them, but they've definitely got a lot of political sway. So much so that they've managed to get if you look here, if you scroll a little bit further down, Mike, and show the cap badge. So if we go a little bit further down, yeah, a little bit further down on the page, there we go. So you can see here on the right hand side of the page, they've created a 2S. Okay, well, the order of the letters are different, man. How do you expect me to get your organization sorted, like phonetically, or just be able to say it properly? Keep on changing the order of the alphabet. Okay, so this group, the letters here, members of the Canadian Armed Forces, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Police RCMP, and the Federal Public Service were systematically discriminated against, harassed, and often fired as a matter of policy and sanctioned practice. Okay, cool. So let's open that. Let's click that link there, Mike, and let's open that up a little bit on the Learn More. So the actual cap badge here, and unfortunately, they don't give a full description of why there's a cap badge. But this is something that is officially sanctioned now by the Legion, I believe, and Veterans Affairs to be worn on their, if you're a veteran, you can wear your beret with your unit insignia. Okay, you can wear your beret, is what it is. But this is something that folks can wear now. Now, this is not a unit, right? This is not a unit. I think we all know that, right? There's no Rainbow Brigade. There's no Rainbow Division. There's no Rainbow Regiment. So this is really interesting because this goes really off onto a different field, because the military typically has very strict rules on this. And especially even in veteran land, we still follow the rules. Now, when you're a veteran, you can wear whatever the hell you want. But for this to be official, that seems to me a little bit interesting, weird to have that lobby. Because if that's the case, if the door's open there, okay, well, what other patches can we get officially sanctioned? So there had to be a lot of lobbying to get that done. And the question is why? Because it rubs me the wrong way. We're supposed to have standards. We're supposed to have standards. And this is not an attack on the LGBT community, but it's just why do we have these standards, and why do we have these officially sanctioned insignia if now they can just be arbitrarily changed with a little political lobbying? Do we get a different one because we're Afghan vets? Do we get a different one because we saw more combat than others? Do we get one because we, fought against the Croats? The reason why we don't do that is because part of who we are is we are a collective, and we do things for the sake of the army. And then we have our units, and we identify with our units. And those are the official unit insignias. To have this seems a little bit odd, in my opinion, to do that, because it's changing essentially the uniform. But what I'm suspecting is that the reason why this is happening is to do exactly what's happening right now on this show. I'm talking about it, but I'm not angry. I'm just curious. But I think it angers a lot of people. And well, actually, I know it angers a lot of people, because this is not the army we signed up for. But I think the most insidious thing is, this is from talking with other folks, the goal is to get us really angry. And this is where I make my point. I think, this is just conjecture, what we've seen since the trucker rally and even Afghanistan pullout. I was shown a document while I was still in D&D that Afghan veterans were deemed to be ideologically motivated violent extremists as part of a subgroup of all the others that are there, including like Hamas and all the other Middle Eastern ones, like you name it. And I was like, holy shitballs. What is going on? Why would I be considered a part of a group of violent extremists? And I think the reason is they need a scapegoat, guys. I think they need a scapegoat because politically, this government is in a really bad way. And if there isn't an incident, a violent incident, everything they've beat the drum on, where, clearly they think veterans are a threat. They've stomped all over us. When I say they, I mean, you know, the folks that were at the trucker rally, I was there, but I didn't get stomped on by the RCMP. The blatant call out of veterans like myself being agents of Russia by the highest general in the land, made, I think all these things, and it now include these monument issues, are meant to incite us to anger. And I'm curious to know, does this make sense? Am I taking crazy pills here? I don't want to go the Alex Jones route. It's not my intent. But if I am onto something here, I'd love to hear in the comments. What do you think? Do you think this is all just a play to get us upset so that we have somebody actually lose it? Because personally, I have no intention of coming for their heads. And I think pretty much everybody's of the same opinion. We just want their jobs. That's it. I'm not coming for your head and coming for your job. And if they totally misread our community, thinking that, oh, we're the big scary military that fought in Afghanistan, so therefore we've got combat experience. Yeah, we do have combat experience, but does that mean that we want to violently overthrow a government? I have no intention, and I don't think anybody I know has any intention of doing that. We're all family guys, most of us anyways, and gals. We just want you to do your job. We just are acting as a political block to your nonsense, because they know we hold a very important opinion that Canadians actually respect. So if we get organized, and I'm talking about, I just mentioned Kelsey Sharon. She is a loud, very well-spoken veteran that is hammering the government at every turn. You've got a guy like Dallas Alexander. He's doing amazing work as a country music star, but he's also well-spoken and doesn't give a shit what other people think of him. We've got other podcasters that are finding their voice too. We've got a very strong community that's slowly starting to build, that realizes we got a lot more power than we think. And I think that is ultimately what the main concern is that we're actually going to shift things over. And I don't think it's a liberal conservative thing. I think it's a Canada thing. I think overall, politically, doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, they're concerned that we're going to start shifting power. Because I'll be honest, if let's say I was a liberal member of parliament, and across the aisle I have another veteran that's a conservative member of parliament, I'll have a lot more in common with him or her, and we can come to an agreement, possibly like, hey, like, dude, let's go grab a brew, man. What's going on here? Like, can we figure this out? Like, okay, yeah, for the good of the country. Yeah, for the good of the country. Let's figure this out. As opposed to now, where most folks have no service at all in their lives. They just end up being a politician. Maybe they had some job working, you know, at a law firm, or, you know, something that is just not related to service or the military or anything of that matter, getting into politics. And so they don't understand the idea of service. They talk about it, but I think we need to have a lot more of us in public service, in politics, because then it would be a counterbalance. Because we know, I mean, I say it with certainty, but like, there's a war coming. We're already in a war. Like, we already fund a war. We're fighting the Russians, but we pretend like somehow, oh, sending billions of dollars worth of equipment and money means, oh, that there's no consequence to that. Of course there's a consequence to that. We're seen as an enemy, obviously. We border them to the north. Like let's wake up a little bit here. So let's hit the comments. Let's see what folks are saying. I realized after I recorded this video, I didn't complete my thought. And this is essentially it. I think our veteran community is being used. I think groups like the Rainbow Veterans are being used. I think groups that, you know, are perceived to be doing good things, which a lot of them are going to be manipulated so that the political ends can be achieved. And we know that within the veteran community, there's a lot of backbiting. And I think once our political overlords understand that, which I think they do, they're going to divide and conquer us. So my goal isn't to say, hey, the Rainbow Veterans are a problem. No, they're doing their thing, and good on them. It's a democratic society. You can lobby as much as you want. It's up to the government to decide whether or not they're going to listen. And I think the point is to try and divide us, because at the end of the day, they're our brothers and sisters. We fought in the same wars. We signed our lives away when we joined. So to have some sort of animosity towards each other only serves those that want to divide us. So ultimately, my message is we need to find a way to bridge the gap so they're getting a monument done. Good for them. But the optics seem off, and optics and perception matter. And if the government doesn't want to take the war seriously, I think the reason for that is that they want to incite us to anger. And just like the Stoics said, he who angers you owns you. So rather than get angry, rather than get upset, rather than act out of emotion, let's bring that emotion down. Let's think rationally, and let's band together, and let's figure out a way to work together so that we can have a more united front. Because I guarantee you, whether you're a rainbow veteran or a veteran for freedom, we all have a lot of commonalities, a lot more than we probably think. And what we see in the media and what is pushed out by the government is completely different from what's reality. So that was my final thought, and I hope that clears things up a little bit better. And thanks for tuning in. Oh, boy. I wasn't paying attention for a little while. Holy smokes, let's get into this. So it's comment time. It's comment time. All right. Valor Law updates, yeah, are always great. And I'll be honest, once this lawsuit is done and we have a decision, the last big episode I did with Catherine, 250,000 people tuned in. And I'll tell you why. It's because this is radio silent in Canada. It's not on any news networks. And on top of that, the internet, social media doesn't allow it to get posted because it deems it as news. So I am de facto the news. And actually, side note, I actually am a literal journalist now, believe it or not. I'm part of the Freelance Guild of Canada. So I just got that approved the other week. So I'm happy about that because then I can get press passes. So yeah, absolutely. I'll keep you guys up to date whenever there's updates for Valor Legal. I wonder how long it took us to build the War Memorial on Elgin Street in downtown Ottawa. I don't know. That's a good one. Mike, I don't know if you can find the answer to that, but no idea. I don't even know when that was built, to be honest. But it's a beauty. Did a lot of ceremonial guard, did a lot of salutes to that monument, walking past it with the division. So Ethos and Eros, you submitted an ATIP with regards to LGBTQ funding in the CAF, and they came back to me and said they couldn't find any records. Interesting. Yeah, I'm curious to know if it, like on the political side or in terms of like creating training. Because I mean, the CAF can't be supporting political movements, right? Because this is what it is essentially, right? Like it's no different than like a BLM or anything like that. Okay, Mike found the National War Memorial was first unveiled in 1939 to commemorate the response to Canadians in the First World War, 1914, 1918. Over the years, the memorial has come to symbolize the sacrifice of Canadians who have served Canada in time of war and is rededicated to their honor. Okay, so 1939. Wow. Okay, so wow, that's wild. And I wonder how long it took to get built. I wonder if you could find that out for us, Mike. I wonder if there's any deep search that we can get that information. But back in the day, like even though they didn't have modern machinery, like they probably did it in like 6 months. You know, soup to nuts, done. Like you got another project. This is the greatest generation. They got everything done, right? One last comment here. Hopefully, the Afghanistan Memorial doesn't take 14 years. Yeah. Yeah, who knows, man? Who knows? I'm not a betting man, but I'm going to say that it's going to take at least another 5 more years. I'm going to throw that out there. And for sure, it's not happening with this current administration. I could pretty much guarantee you they're going to dangle that like, haha, you can't get this, you can't get this. And they're going to just throw a whole bunch of stuff at us to try and get us enraged and inflamed. Who knows, maybe offer made to a few more veterans. Who knows, maybe you'll get a call next. Be like, hey, we've got this great new plan. Have you ever thought about offing yourself? Be like, no, what? And then you write me, and then we get upset again. And then they laugh in the back corners of Parliament, be like, ha, 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 we got them again. We got them. But joke's on them, because we're a resilient community, and we're going to keep on building. We're going to keep on growing. And I got some details next week coming up regarding the Military Influencer Conference. So stay tuned for that. And some great podcasts coming down the pipe. They've been slow lately. They haven't been getting pumped out as fast as I would like, only because my literal speed has been dramatically reduced because I had a back flare up. So I'll be producing more now that I'm feeling better, and I can literally move a little bit faster to get from point A to point B. So stay tuned for some more awesome episodes. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to also subscribe on your favorite podcast player, so you can find us on all platforms, and make sure to give us a rating. That goes a long way. If you haven't done so already, give us a rating, give us a review. We're at 30 something plus reviews on Apple Podcasts. I know we can bump that up to well over 100. And same here. We're constantly growing on YouTube, which is great. Well over 6,000 subscribers and growing. And I can't wait to see the growth of the podcast and to see more folks get leaner, meaner and harder to kill. All right. I'm starting to lose my words. It's time to wrap up. So thanks again for tuning in, folks. And we'll see you on the next one. Train hard, fight easy. Peace.